Your Honorable Mr. B.N. Singh, Chief Minister, Your Honorable Mr. Chair of the panel, distinguished ambassadors, high commissioners, dear ASEAN friends. It gives me a great pleasure and privilege to be here for the first time as I just assumed my ambassadorial post 3 months ago. This is a very beautiful area of India that I try to get a better understanding because it is very special. It is special in many ways. The first way is that it's very far apart from the main India that we are normally familiar with physically. And secondly, it has a distinctive cultural and historical spiritual linkages. Let me thank, on behalf of my embassy, and as I'm the first ambassador of ASEAN to speak, thank the organizing committee, the various states of Northeast Asia, India Federation, and the Ministerial of External Affairs for organizing this important event. Looking back at the records of the youth, ASEAN youth and other ASEAN dialogue partners, we are very pleased to see that India is the 4th country, in addition to Japan, China, and Australia, to organize that kind of youth exchange. I welcome that initiative, though I believe, in my humble view, a little bit overdue. We wish it could be organized much earlier, but nevertheless, this is a very good initiative. And this gives the opportunity not only for ASEAN youth, but also for ASEAN head of missions of ASEAN embassies in New Delhi to get a better understanding of India. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam is entrusted with a very high responsibility to talk about physical connectivity between India and ASEAN. I think this is a very challenging task because Vietnam does not have any physical link with India except the sea link. We don't have the road link, we don't border with India, we even don't have air link. So how can an ambassador of Vietnam can speak about this topic? But I believe that the topic is even more challenging for the youth because overall connectivity, we have human connectivity, we have economic connectivity, we have cultural connectivity, and we also have spiritual connectivity. All those much are easier for the youth. But when talking to your youth about physical connectivity, it's another story. Connectivity, especially physical connectivity, requires huge of investment. It requires policy-wise. It requires even internal stability. It requires harmonization and coordination of internal policy of the country. So talking to this topic, let me share, Mr. Chairman, a number of anecdotes in my country. Perhaps this story may help you. In Vietnam, around 10 years ago, we have 2 very poor provinces. One province called Quảng Bình. It is in the center part of Vietnam. The road conditions to that province was very bad at that time. We did not have air link. And then the chairman of the People's Committee, like Chief Minister of that province, keep asking the government, you have to invest, you have to have air link, everything like that. But the government said that, but you don't have anything to offer. So if we invest, nobody uses the air link. And finally, we found out in Quảng Bình a huge cave, and that was later discovered the biggest underground chamber, Sơn Dòng, and it was claimed by UNESCO as UNESCO site, and becomes one of the wonder of the world because all the adventurers would like to come there. It's lifetime journey because the chamber is 16 kilometers long under the earth. So once we had the recognitions by UNESCO, everything changed. The government decided to invest in airport. A number of private air companies opened the airlink. The Ministry of Transport invests a lot in improving the road conditions, and the whole story changed for the better. So a lot of people come, and that's changed. The second story is another province in the southern part of Vietnam. It was named Quang Ngai. It was also very poor. So the government of Vietnam keep thinking of how to make a change, because also that province, we don't have any physical connectivity at all because no one wants to go there. And the government made a very important political decisions. The government decided to build an oil refinery, petrol refinery. And at that time, when the decision of the government came out, all the company, big companies, decided to withdraw from the project. They said that it's not viable economically because the government would like to help that province to get better off. The government does not pay attention to the profits of the company and things like that. But our government decided to go ahead with that. And a couple of years ago, here we have a huge refinery in Quang Ngai. And then everything followed. The airlink, the condition, hotel, and Quang Ngai now become one of the much better off province of Vietnam. Having said that, I want to come back to the main topic of the panel is physical conditions. You have heard in the special address by the Secretary East Singh that India conducted a number of projects with Myanmar, with Thailand. We have highway, 3 countries highway. We intend to have a railway. We also want to increase the airlink. Now let me go to one of these things. Number 1, roadway. My colleague, Ambassador Myanmar, said that idea came around many years ago. But it takes years in order to, and they have to wait until 11 years in order to announce the project. And they don't know when the project will be going to finish. So it is a very difficult project. It requires a lot of investments. So now we have to look for funding from multilateral funding agencies, the ADB, World Bank, things like that. So this is the matter of multilateral facets. It's no longer the matter between ASEAN and India. Because both of us, ASEAN and India, would like to have that. But the question is, where do we get the money from? That's the first thing. Now coming back to the railway. The railway is talking about physical connectivity. I wish that the Myanmar ambassador would have been in that position to speak, because Myanmar is the only ASEAN that neighbors India. So I was told by some friends that here the condition is very difficult in order to build a railway between India and other cities in ASEAN. So that option will be very difficult. Now about airlink. We found out that 16 airlines have flown between India and various cities of ASEAN. That is a good thing. Now, I tell you another story that I tried very hard in order to have an airlink between New Delhi and Vietnam, and I could not succeed. The reason is that, number 1, the air companies say that at the moment the capacity does not allow them to have, because if they run that airlink, they will go bankruptcy. That's number 1, because not enough people to travel. Number 2, another private company would like to come into the market, but at the moment they have a problem with the time slot, because all the good time have taken by other ASEAN colleagues. So perhaps we also heard about the project of $5 billion that the government of India is ready to put in order to boost the airlink between India and ASEAN. Perhaps it is the high time for all ASEAN airlines, 16 existing ones, and additional one who would like to into the market to get together and sit and talk together with other airlines from India. So when you ask us about to open the airlink, I also ask you to India Airline, Indigo, EasyJet, Vistara, also to fly to respective ASEAN countries. And the question is that they also think of the profitability. So I think that what is important for us now is to get together, sit down, and discuss. Because otherwise, if you keep calling this way another way, it's very difficult for us to come to a more optimistic scenario in the future. Physical connectivity, ladies and gentlemen, is not the topic that we are talking today. It has been raised repeatedly at different conferences here in India. It has also been addressed by the Prime Minister. It has also been addressed by various dignitaries, union ministers in New Delhi and on various occasions. So today, our main audience is the youth. So perhaps I want to borrow what has been said by the Minister of State, Amb Pham, and Secretary Singh, that perhaps it's now for us, the panelists, to call on all the young youth, the future policymaker. Do you have any recommendation or any options in order to improve the physical connectivity between your respective country and India? I hope that after the 3 days here, you will be able to come up with some recommendation. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I want very much to share with the Honorable Chief Minister that in your beautiful state, you have a lot of rich cultural traditions. You talk about dancing, you talk about handloom, you talk about all the nice things. But at that moment, I think, since I have been working for UNESCO many years, I think that perhaps the best way for you now is to select one of the best products you have and ask your union government to submit to UNESCO in order to get the UNESCO advertising, branding. Once, for instance, the same ways like Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is beautiful, but Taj Mahal is popular thanks to UNESCO branding. And the white field tomorrow we are going, we came to know that also thanks to UNESCO branding. So if your states would like to have any link, either road link, air link, or river link, then you have something to offer. And that offer, the things that you want to offer need to be internationally, or what normally we use, need to have universally accepted value. So once you have that, once you have the branding, when you have the marketing, everything will follow. So ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow will be the New Year of Vietnam. The presence, impressive presence of my delegation and me myself testify to the fact that how treasure Vietnam, how much Vietnam treasure the relationship with India. And we want to be here throughout all the New Year festival and holidays in order to contribute to a stronger tie physically, humanly, politically, and also spiritually between India and ASEAN, and especially between India and Vietnam. I thank you very much.